do this shit. Let's do this thing that we do called the Death Clock.
Recording live from the E. Haley Memorial Studios, straight out of Almont, Ontario, it's time for This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes, your one and only weekly Warma Hordes news broadcast. It's 8 p.m. Wednesday night, the beers are cold, the news is fresh, and the Death Clock starts now.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Death Clock. So this will be a bit of a different night. We're trying a bit of a different format. We've brought our good friend Marc-Andre LeBlanc onto the show. It's been a few weeks since he's been on. He took kind of a little bit of a hiatus during the sort of Mark II to Mark III transition. He can tell you a bit more about that, I'm sure. But he's back. He's live and in charge. Did an amazing job running the first that we know of, who's the boss tournament here
in Mark III.
In Mark III at the CCBB.
Anywhere.
Anywhere in Mark III at the CCBB this weekend. But what we're going to do tonight is something we haven't done on the show before, which is Mark put together, or as we affectionately call him, M.A., put together a list for George, because George was sort of trying to figure out, well, I mean, first off, why did you go to Marc-Andre for a list, George?
Well, Mark is a much more experienced player than myself, and also he's played a lot of Cygnar, as his moonlighting on another cast will attest to. Or maybe he's moonlighting here. I haven't really checked that yet.
We had him first, damn it.
Who's stolen our Marc-Andre?
Oh, the Storm Chamber. It's a new Cygnar-based podcast, and it's fun. I've listened to the first episode. Episodes, I think, 2 and 3 just came out.
Everybody just wants to be us.
Yeah, that's what it is. And I was looking for something sort of scenario-y to match up with my Striker 2. And so I said to Mark, what's kind of scenario-y to go with Striker 2? And he said, don't pair that with Striker 2, do something like Darius. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he messaged me later. He's like, I was thinking about what you said. You should try Haley 1 on all the guns.
All right, before we get too deep into that, because that's going to be the topic of most of our evening tonight, we're going to talk about list building. We're going to talk about, we're going to pick MA's mind on how to list build a little bit and how he goes through that whole process. And we're going to talk a bit about the games that you and I and Maelstrom had this week against that list. And you can talk about operator error and how your dice failed you, and we'll talk about how we owned you with tactics and our deep thinking
and luck.
So let's start right off the top. Marc-Andre, we're going to talk a bit. Let's talk. We don't have a ton of news this week, actually. The one big news item is that the PP store changed and went live today. I don't think we need to go into too much detail. Go check it out. They've made a huge overhaul. It looks much better.
Oh, yeah. It's almost as good as the Moose Machine store.
It's almost as good as the Moose Machine store, where you can get these amazing bottle openers / feet tokens / 2-inch reach markers.
That's
and they're
true.
maze balls.
Yep.
But I think the biggest news for us, other than that, store coolness, which is now the cards are all available, which is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing for us is let's talk a bit about the Capital City Bloodbath.
Yeah, Capital City Bloodbath was this weekend. I'm sure you guys are really tired of hearing me at the end of each of these podcasts talk about the Capital City Bloodbath and how amazing it's going to be.
Well, the good news is we don't have to anymore.
Yeah,
we don't have to hear how amazing it's going to
time.
be. We get to hear, you get to all hear about how amazing it was.
It was,
yeah.
Because it was
so,
amazing.
because we haven't heard from MA at all, because the three of us gabby bastards, now that we have these fantastic microphones, we all feel like talking a lot more.
It's true.
Marc-Andre, how was your CCBB experience?
It was pretty great. I could not make it for the Friday just because of work. But then I heard the Iron Arena had quite a few people, like 16 or something like that.
Yes, there was.
Just pretty good for a Friday.
Yeah.
All things considered. And then, we had the Masters on Saturday. We had people from Kingston, Montreal, Italy attending that event. And that was pretty cool. I personally took some Circle, which I was sort of repping after my month hiatus, where I was just mostly playing Guild Ball. So I took Wormwood, Kaya 2. I ended up going 4-1 for the weekend. My first game, if I remember, was against David. He was playing Kalissa, who's a pretty standard drop in a circle. Luckily, Wormwood can still kind of handle her. Second game played against my friend Devin, who was also playing Kalissa. No, I'm sorry. He was playing Kalissa and Vyros too, and he decided to drop Vyros. And I was pretty sure he would do that, so I dropped Kaya too. And she absolutely destroys Battle Group Heavy List, so that was pretty one-sided. Yeah, I even won the Scenario Online Breaker, to give you an idea.
Wow, that's yeah.
Yeah. Then I did get to play against Steph, who was playing Siege. Yeah, and I sort of feel like Siege is a bit weak into Wormwood, and I think my opponent kind of confirmed that. Where my opponent, at the end of the game, my opponent just kind of went, I don't think there's anything I could do there. And I was able to kill Stormwall from like 17 inches away, thanks to double Hellmouths, like pulling a Stalker twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was good. Then I played against Matt, who was playing a really weird sort of oddball Magnus 2 list. That, as it turns out, was not bad against Wormwood. He had played it against him.
Not as oddball as you'd think. Well,
yeah.
So I think what we'll, because I got to commentate on that game, and one of the cool, interesting things about that list that we need to kind of address is that he took, I want to say, 4 nomads into you, and with Magnus 2, you get +2 armor. So those nomads were sitting on armor 21 throughout that entire battle.
In melee, yeah, they get
melee,
a yielder.
Yeah.
You had 3 nomads and a mangler.
Yeah.
And that they're basically all armor 21 in melee.
Jesus Christ.
It was interesting because they're really cheap. Like, they're 11 points, the nomads. That is dirt cheap for something that has a free charge and effectively armor 21 in melee.
Wow.
So it was an interesting game. There were a few things I could have done different. If I'd prepared better for his feat, I think I would have been in a good position. But he played it very well. It was a close game. And yeah, so that was good. And then the next morning, I was faced off against Danny, but neither of us really wanted to play, so we rolled it off, and I got the win. So that's how I technically went 4-1. But then we ran this cool part of the event, which was Who's the Boss, where we had 25 players, if memory serves. I think it was the first Who's the Boss of Mark III. It was a really sweet time. Because like most people knew nothing about these casters because they were so new, and we even had like the new journeyman that we sort of proxied with the old models. So it was really cool. It was a ton of fun. I loved running that event again, and I already have ideas on how to make it better for next time. So keep an eye out for that if you're local.
I think what I really enjoyed about that event, and just to speak to it, what I enjoyed was I got you got to choose what I ran once, and I got to choose what I ran once. But I think it was most fun to watch you go, so you got a bunch of drudges and stuff. I'm gonna make you try this, and it was one of those. It was a cool interactive experience, I want to say. And I think that was I would have almost wanted that to happen every time, just to be like, when you turn to me like, choose your own, I'm like, oh shit, I just lost a Denny 3. I think that's a legit idea. I'm taking her. I think it was a super fun experience. I had a blast.
Yeah.
I finally got to live the dream. Madrak 2 with drudges would have been friggin' ridiculous, except I ran into a Khador heavy spam as my opponent. And I could feat, but it's not going to do anything at all because there's no models for me to kill. It was a very cool experience. I want to throw this over to George. How was your CC? You were at you had a different experience than we did because you were behind a desk. But how did you feel about the whole thing?
Oh, I think it went off very well. I was very happy to be part of the crew running that. I got to give a big shout out to all the other organizers because for this particular event, I had to do very little in the prep department. I basically said, I want you guys to have War Machine events. These are the events I want to do. These are the days I want to do them. And then basically that was my last involvement with all the preparation stuff. I didn't have to rent halls and have to do any of that stuff. So that was a big load off. As for my day-to-day experience, I got kind of 6 hours of sleep over 3 days. So I'm still recovering from that.
He'll do that. That is his thing that he does.
But I mean, other than that, it was amazing. I had so many great players. It was, the organization didn't go bad. I was really pleased with, we used a new piece of software in the area called Tiebreak that was actually written for the Guild Ball guys, but they've opened it up to a lot of different tournament systems. And one of the great things about that is I can post it onto like Facebook and stuff, and you can actually watch the entire tournament happen in real time. You can see as soon as somebody beats somebody else. You can see live standings during the entire event. So that worked really well for us. And I was able to give away a large amount of prizing at the end. In fact, it got down to the place at the very end of the night where I was literally asking people, what faction do you play? And
Here's a box.
And then grabbing
this
prizing
home.
off the table and tossing it at them. We gave away just over $1,700 worth of product.
That's amazing.
insane.
Between
And how many players?
22 players?
over the 3 days, it came out to about 37 unique players.
Yeah.
But we never had that many on any one
Yeah,
day.
so I mean, at that
so we
point-
had like seven. I think we had 18 the first day. We had 23 the second day, and I think 25 the third day.
Yeah.
Between people playing Iron Arena and people actually playing
That's
in
fantastic.
tournaments.
So I mean, at that many people and that amount of prizes, pretty much everybody got something.
Oh yeah. I
That's-
would be very surprised if there was anybody who wanted a product and did not walk away with something.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to throw this over to Maelstrom because your experience differs from the other. You stuck
Right.
in Iron Arena all weekend.
Yeah, I
you
just
didn't get
Grinded
pulled
some
in.
games out.
And
I just-
and was it a good? How did your? I mean, other than your experience, how did
Right.
your games go? Give us sort of a report.
well, my games didn't go very well. I
This,
went.
in your defense, this was your first weekend with Hellmouth.
Right, I went 1-4, I think. Which is, I mean, I played against some pretty experienced players. So, well, yeah, some of them were pretty experienced. But it was the first time I was trying out a list too, and you probably should never go into something like this.
Yeah, but Iron
with-
Arena.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to do it, because I figured I can bring this new list and I can get, I don't know, like 5 or 6 games in quickly with a list and, get a good feel for it. And that was pretty much my intention, and that's pretty much what I did.
Awesome.
I had a lot of fun. It was good.
And your first go with Hellmouths, how did it go?
I love the Hellmouth. I think I want to.
Like spend some
Yep.
special time just
Spend-
you and
yeah.
the Hellmouth?
I'm gonna kick the wife
Fair.
out of the house for a night. Light some candles.
That's-
Maybe order some
That's
Chinese
vivid.
food.
So, because you guys never ask me questions, I just ask you
How
questions.
was your experience at the tournament, Mift
So-
Gorax?
So my experience was different.
Okay. In what way?
And we'll talk about. I want to talk about my experience.
Do it.
So it started out with. I'm not going to talk. That would be ridiculous. It started out with me. I wasn't going to play Masters. It was like that was my plan.
Right,
I was
you
like,
wanted
I'm
to come
gonna
and do Iron
I
Arena
know,
mostly,
Iron
right?
Arena. I'm just going to grind out some points. I'm going to get a ton of games in because that's all I really want to do. I have lost every game but one since Mark III hit, and that's I'm talking like 20 games. I've lost 19 games in a row, which apparently karmically meant that I was due.
You were
I was due. So I had probably, and then George said, "No, you have to play Masters because we're short one." And I'm like, "No," and he's like, "Yes," and I'm like, "No," and he's like, "It's like just play, you fucking dink."
Yeah,
I
pretty
think was
much.
your exact words.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Okay,
That
fine."
sounds like something you'd say.
And I had my two lists already ready. So and they were fully painted. He's like, "You're gonna get a shit ton of points, so go play." And I played, and I almost came in fourth.
Out of, like,
me
22
and
people.
another Merc player, Matt, were both in for. Were like contesting for fourth, right to the very last second, till the very last game got checked in, and then Matt got bumped up by like a point on strength of schedule and got into fourth. I had probably the craziest, weirdest game against my buddy, our buddy Paul. He's been on the show.
Yep.
Paul
Campbell.
Paul was kind of beaten by the analog clock a little bit because it always looks like you have more time than you do. So he literally hit the button, and as he hit the button, the little tag dropped.
Oh.
So in my defense, in my thinking, I don't think he could have won because he would have either had to sacrifice some of his activations to do it, which meant he would have been able to kill, all the heavies that I had.
That would
on
have
the
been one
board.
fast assassination.
And then
Oh,
I would have been able to run stuff into the zone, and then
Yeah.
you would have had less than 10 seconds to do stuff. And you need to have 15 seconds, really, in the grand scheme of things, to legitimately say I score. I think I could have blocked enough of his points at that point to maybe eke out a win. But yeah, he was a little bit bummed about the. I don't think he was bummed. He's such a great player, and
and then
that
he played me afterwards and just wiped the table with me. So
well, I told him to play you afterwards.
Yeah, because it made him feel really good.
Made
afterwards.
him feel good about himself.
And he after the game was over, he was like, "This is why you lost," because I was like, you just absolutely wiped me out.
I want to see in the Masters. I want to see us bring in that sportsmanship award that's going around, because I think like in this case I would have given Paul the sportsmanship award by far.
He's an amazing opponent.
Well, because even by that's a clock loss, and that's a hard thing to take. When I would have had a hard time with playing he played an amazing.
Oh, you
solid
would have been
game.
unbearable for a week.
Yeah, totally. And he was like, "Oh well, that happens." I mean, we had a great big hug, and he was like congratulating me and shit. And that is sportsmanship.
That's
right
the
there.
kind of guy you want to play against all the time.
And then my next game, I faced an amazing Crix list that I could not pin any 3 down. And that was the whole thing, is I just needed to kind of go for scenario. But I came in 5th, and that's the best I've ever done in a tournament, so I'm pretty stoked about that. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm super stoked about it. I mean...
Yeah, good job, buddy.
I was at the point...
We're
I got to be
very
honest.
happy
I was
for
at
you.
the point where I was like, I may just want to talk about War Machine more and tune back my playing a little bit, my competitive playing a little bit more. But now I'm like, maybe I know what I'm doing here, because I played my own lists.
You might have just had a streak of bad
I
luck.
might have had a streak of good luck. All right, so we're going to leave all that behind. 2-player battle boxes are in the wild, ladies and gentlemen. Go ahead and get your 2-player battle boxes. You get some cool
I
stuff.
think Maelstrom and I are going to split one.
Yeah, we are.
Ooh, again, you guys are always splitting stuff. Wives, battle boxes. I mean, we don't want to talk about that on the podcast. All right, ladies, it's time for a little focus. For this week's focus, what we're going to talk about is list building. I don't know what you're showing, but
His Twitch mobile app, because it's working. Apparently, some people are having problems with it.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I suggest refreshing the Twitch mobile app. Twitch sucks balls.
Twitch has been having problems the last few weeks. We wouldn't want to take that away as our main way of streaming. We're just going to do it all through YouTube and oh, no, that's not going to work. Nobody will actually watch our show.
No.
Okay, guys, we're going to talk in the focus this week. We're going to delve into the deep, dark reality that is Marc-Andre's brain for building...
I just got shivers.
for building a list. So as G has already explained earlier in the podcast, he was kind of trying to contemplate some list building options, did a little bit of dojoing, and MA came back with a list, and you played it a few times, G. And the idea was that our concept was that you would play that a couple of times and we'd see how it went type of deal. And then the two of you, we could sort of talk about his way of building it and the result with you playing it, which kind of delves into the idea that playing somebody else's list, especially green, doesn't always go well.
Absolutely. One thing I want to preface this before we get too deep in is that I'm not sure that this list was a deeply thought out list by Marc-Andre. Now he might say otherwise.
Maybe we should let Marc-Andre.
Well, no, we will. But what I wanted to preface this with was I sort of put him on the spot and I said, "Hey, what is this?"
We're never getting Marc-Andre back.
Not give me a list that is going to beat
him
the
under
world.
the bus.
No, I want him.
No, well, that's why. But that's why we want him to tell us. So
Yeah.
let's start with Marc-Andre. So, and we're going to get really into what you guys did when we get to the next segment of the program. So about 10 minutes. But first, let's talk about list building. So we all know what a list is. Let's talk to Marc-Andre first about sort of his mindset when he goes at list building. What is the first thing that you do when you're starting to build a list, especially with the new Mark III Marc-Andre?
I think, when you're building a list, you sort of, or at least what I ask myself anyway, is, okay, let's look at the top casters. Let's look at the meta in general. Let's look at what everyone is playing. And basically, which casters will let me have a solid game plan for most of them, if not all of them. It's a bit difficult to plan for everything. But that's one of the key points I try to keep in mind is, okay, how am I going to answer Lilith 3, Wormwood, Irusk 2, Madrak 2, guys like that, like all the really nasty stuff that has sort of risen to the top since they released Mark III. So that's definitely one, and I think part of that comes with the faction that you play. Like there are some factions that just say, you know what, I'm going to put this on the table. If you don't have an answer to that, you're going to be in trouble. I don't think Cygnar is one of those lists, except maybe with Karasloan, who is a perfectly, fine caster to take if you in your tournament pair. But anyway, that one of the first things I ask myself is, how do I answer these problematic casters?
So let's talk about some of the problematic casters right now in the meta. I think you already mentioned Wormwood, and I think Sloan is one of those ones that we're all trying to answer as well. Are there any other? Are those? Am I speaking right? And are there any other casters that you sort of think about immediately when you're thinking about creating your list right now?
Yeah, I think Sloan. I mean, even if you're building Cygnar, you should keep her in mind. Lilith 3 is another one that will punish an unprepared player. Basically, with her, to take care of her, you need to have some access to magic weapons to actually threaten her. Ideally, you will not give her many, if any, targets for her to proc Blood Boon. Madrak 2 is another one where you have to keep in mind, if he gets to the right spot, he will destroy, your entire army. Like he will kill your whole army, get to your caster with 30 attacks, and kill you with 22 to spare. That's something that he does. And beyond that, I mean, casters like Irusk 2, are you planning on forests and clouds keeping you safe? You might want to rethink that. Can you also deal with his 20 or 30 tough, no knockdown immunoblast infantry? So you sort of have to plan for that. So in broad terms, I mean, you need to be able to deal with infantry spam still, even in Mark III. It's still a thing. You still need a list that can handle heavy spam, because if any of you guys have seen the Karchev list, 14 Mad Dogs,
Yep.
That is a skew, not a particularly good one, I think, against a well-prepared player, but you might run into it, especially if you go to a con or something. Beyond that, too, you want to keep in mind scenarios, right? Do you have a game plan for Linebreaker? Do you have a game plan for Take and Hold? Do you have this is all stuff you need to keep in mind, because there are going to be those matchups where you just have no chance as far as attrition goes, and so you have to shift gears and go, okay, how do I win on scenario? So right. You want a versatile list. I find, especially in Mark III, for whatever reason, solos are really important. Those cheap solos that can score flags or zones on their own are really, really useful. The Gobber Tinker is insane for 2 points. He always does cover.
That guy is a friggin'... He's been an MVP in my pirate list every game I've played.
It's ridiculous. You should never... most lists cannot reliably take him out at range, and he just goes to score an objective, or a zone, I should say, or a flag, and he can repair friendly warjacks. They don't even have to be friendly faction. So I think every list should have a couple solos to achieve that sort of thing. I think now most, except for Dominate, most of my points are scored by solos now. Even the Gobber Chef gets it done.
Awesome. I mean, that kind of answered 90% of my questions perfectly. What I'm going to send out to G is, let's talk about let's get the PG point of view. Let's get the rules point of view. Tell me a bit about let's start with what's the basic point level that everybody's playing at right now, and talk to why that's the basic point level. And then I want you to talk a bit about the confusion that is Jack or Beast points, and that comes up with new players a lot. They go, well, I don't get it. What is these 35 points I'm getting? I'm playing at 50 points. How come I'm getting whatever? Tell me a bit about that.
So a lot of this stems from the Mark II to Mark III move. All the Jacks doubled in points. A lot of the units did. And but we're not playing 100 points. We're playing 75. So you were asking what is the sort of standard list size? Currently, for Steamroller, most tournaments that you will see will be at 75 points. Now, that's not to say you can't have fun at other point levels, but sort of what you will see will be 75-point lists. Those 75-point lists are the points that you can bring into your army, and then your warcaster will bring a certain amount of points that you can only fill with warjacks. So, for example, you have a 75-point list, and then you add in a warcaster who is, to make it really simple, 25 points, which would be a lower ended warcaster. There are warcasters that are 29. There are some a little bit lower than that as well. But so say you have a 25-point warcaster, that's how you're getting back up to that 100 points.
Gotcha.
For example, Paul Campbell during our tournament, after 3 rounds, had killed 288 points, leaving a grand total of 12 points on the table between 3 games.
Wow.
Yeah, it was kind of brutal.
He left me on just Bart.
Yeah.
Bart won the game on time because you just can't kill Bart, and it was
Yeah.
he was able to do a lot of clearing.
Yeah, he did that all day. It wasn't just you. When you're doing, so you have a 75-point list plus 25 points of jacks. Now, it does not limit you to only 25 points of jacks with this fictional warcaster we're talking about, but you must use those points only for jacks. So if, for example, you wanted to have a complete army of dudes,
Infantry.
if it was all infantry, you would only get a 75-point army. You wouldn't have the other 25 points. And this is where I have to mention that you can't play more than 3 points down in Mark III.
Right.
So even though you're creating a list that has, say, 75 points in it without any jacks, you're going to have to use up those points somewhere.
Yeah.
So in Mark II, it was Kador. Kador loved to take exactly 1 warjack and then all the rest infantry.
Yep.
Because the warjack points are so much larger in Mark III, most people are going to end up with a couple of heavies or maybe 3 or 4 lights and a heavy as their battle group. So it is trending towards larger battle groups. Doesn't mean infantry's gone. It just means there's a little bit less of it.
Okay, let's talk a bit about how things fit into the equation. First off, there's only 2 theme lists out there. There's a Merc theme list, or there's 2 Merc theme lists.
There's 2 Merc theme lists.
One
is required.
Cephalix, and one you have to take, and it's friggin' bananas. And then there's one that you don't necessarily have to take, which is the Kingmaker army. And both are super friggin' legit. Marc-Andre, you actually fought the Kingmaker army.
I did.
Tell me a bit about so we haven't seen a ton of lists in Mark III yet, and in your sort of feedback to me when we were talking about what you've seen in theme lists is it's interesting because theme lists seem to be sort of giving extra points every time. At least the 2 that we've seen are giving away a free 8 to 16 points. Let's just say off the top of my head. Sort of, where does a theme list fit into your list building? Going from Mark II to Mark III is a little bit difficult to comment on that, but when you're looking at theme lists, ADR, all these kind of things, how do you think about that?
I think any theme list that gives you free points on stuff you would probably take anyway is worth a look at. Right now, of course, I mean, our sample size is pretty small. The Cephalix one easily nets you 2 free units of Overlords, which is fantastic. They give you they take what is normally a list that is just pure melee and just go, hey, here are these super accurate magical sprays that ignore line of sight. Like it's such a different tool to have in your army. Getting it for free is just even better. Kingmaker, on the other hand, I mean, gives you a bunch of solos that you may not take for free. I'm still of the opinion, though, that being able to manufacture 17 free points pretty trivially, which is Stannis Brocker and 2 5-point solos, like Kel Balog and Orin Midwinter, is extremely strong. I'm not exactly loving the fact that the 2 theme forces we have right now give you about a 15% bonus on your army size. If we think back to Mark II, Like Veil 2 gave you about a 9% bonus. Evolutionary Elementalism gave you roughly a 20% bonus. So that was the most egregious of the theme lists. But so to start like that, to say here's our starting point, does not
Doesn't bode
anyway.
well.
Yeah, like I don't want to be too pessimistic, but near the end of Mark II, Theme Forces definitely got to be a bit of an issue.
So
Like it was all anyone really played when they were that good.
do you think maybe, and this could go to everybody, my opinion is maybe that is where they want us to go to a certain degree. Maybe we will all be playing Theme Forces because that's how. Do you think that may be where they're going?
Well, okay, so just real quick, if we look at the Theme Forces, say each one includes 3 to 4 Warcasters or Warlocks, and say there's 3 per faction, right? That gives you about 15 different Theme Forces, closer maybe to 20 if they start including 4 per Theme Force, which means we're looking at close to 200 Theme Forces, 200 possible combinations of Theme Forces that Privateer Press has to playtest and make sure are balanced. It just seems like even more work than they had in the past. So if their goal is to have us all playing Theme Forces, my concern is that, and I actually think you have a point there, because they, what they mentioned with command books and how certain Theme Forces will have unique models. So clearly it's something that they're, if they give us this exclusive model, and they want us to play it, it has to be not only does the model itself have to be good, the theme force has to be good as well, or at least playable. So my guess would be that on the power curve they're likely to be a little bit above average at a minimum. So my concern would be the playtest angle, because the more of these that you release, the more like permutations that exist because of how many casters there are, and so it makes the playtesting effort more onerous. So I hope that's not the direction they're going, honestly, because I don't think they have an amazing track record looking at Mark II.
Okay, that's a pretty big thing.
Do you think the extra points are ameliorated by the fact that it has to be only certain models? You can't just get cheaper jacks or just get this. You have to pick from these 4 models.
I think that's a good point. I think that if they if they do restrict the models you can get for free in the bonuses, they can it does mean less playtesting necessary. If they're like, well, you can only get these 4 free models. I think that's a good point.
Okay, let's sort of. I don't want to go too much farther into this because we're already kind of running over time. We could talk about list building all day, and we do. I mean, this is kind of what we talk about on the show.
Yeah.
And we could talk about this more as we get into the roundtable tonight. And the roundtable, what we're going to talk about is list building 101, kind of, but from a perspective of from a dojo. And this is kind of what happens to all 4 of us here. Do this on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I know, Marc-Andre, you spend time online with guys like Chris Aubin and Devin, and what we all do in our chats every day. We 3 do it. I do it with Aubin pretty much on a daily. I do it with Marc-Andre too on a kind of a monthly basis when I've got a new idea. I have a group of friends, and what I do when I come up with a crazy idea for a list in my head is I pass my list by my friends. And let's talk a bit about, this is exactly what you did with this particular thing. You said, I need a solution for this. And you went to MA, and you said, and in MA, you came back with this list concept. Sort of tell me what your thinking was with this list, and why you built it the way you did.
I mean, really, I was looking to maximize the ranged output, that you can get in a given turn. The snipers are a new thing. The Arcane Tempest Riflemen are not something we really had access to. The Gunmage Captain Adepts were not very good in Mark II. They were sort of overcosted. So
now they're amazeballs.
Yeah, now, I mean, with the ability to use 2 ammo types and to have like really strong ammo types like flare and shadow fire in conjunction with snipe. Obviously, the brutal is still extremely good, but being able to basically keep these guys really safe while getting their shots off thanks to snipe is something you did not have access to in Mark II. I mean, Blazers are great. Black 13th are still extremely good, and when they all have an extra shot, they hit like trucks. I mean, you don't have access to Iana and hold like you did before. Like, it's just extremely expensive to take them with Murdoch now.
Yeah.
So I don't see many lists taking them. But anyway, the idea really was just, you know what, let's put as many guns in as we can. If your other list, and in this case George's was Striker 2, if your other list is built to handle things in melee, you know, having the opposite skew where you just say, here are all the guns, it presents your opponent with an interesting challenge when it comes to list selection.
Okay, George, I want you to go through, tell me the list, just straight cut and dry, what was in this list?
So it is Captain Victoria Haley with a Squire attached, a Stormwall and its lightning pods, 2 Arcane Tempest Riflemen, 2 Gunmage Captain Adepts, Alton Ashley, Strange Ways, the Black 13th, a min unit of Field Mechanics, and the Tempest Blazers.
Okay, so here you presented me this list after you and Anime had dojoed it out. I mean, you were handed it. Were you kind of given any instruction on how to handle it? You'd said this is what I want. What did you think you had to do with it at that point?
Mark hadn't given me a lot of idea. Mostly we talked briefly about just that's a lot of shots and a lot of good shots that can do things. Because we wanted this to be a more scenario-focused list, having a lot of solos in it means more guys to contest, more guys to control, and also more unique actions. The old Mark II list, the Ocean's 13 list, where you had just as many min units, as many solos as you could with Sorsha, I think it was. It's the same idea. A lot of small units that can all benefit from small, I don't mean unit is as in the unit of models, right. Small pieces of the army that can all benefit from the feat, that can all do work at range, and can all do things like control and contest. And all of that held down by the Stormwall that can hold a zone or hold a... or hold a like a flag or something was sort of what I was given. My thought when looking at the list was, I don't know how I'm going to run this, and I still am after running it twice.
We'll get into
I'm
that.
still a little a little weird on how to run it.
So here's the thing: I had not an advantage, but I looked at it like I would look at like a Masters. So I'm really only going to play 2 lists into it. I basically said I'm only going to play 2 lists into it. I'm going to play either my Pirates or I'm going to play my Cephalix, because that's what I'm playing right now. Those are my 2 lists. And I didn't alter them specifically to kill your list. The one thing I did alter from my Pirates from Masters on the weekend was I had already decided that I was going to take out 3 points by pulling my Rover out of my Pirates list and throw Hawk in, and basically do some point switching around so I get Hawk into that list, so that I could give and then pull Ian and Holt out and put the Devil's Shadow in instead, because I was finding Ian and Holt weren't really doing the work I wanted them to, although Holt was the friggin' MVP, taking out friggin' everything during my games, but Iana wasn't doing what I wanted her to do. So I was basically spending 8 points to really use only 4 points. So I'd already switched those things in my list. So I looked at my 2 lists and I said, okay, I'm going to choose my Pirates list. So I'm looking at this like a Masters. If I saw this list coming at me, what would I do? I'm not going to choose my Cephalix, because all that's going to happen is you're going to just shoot, like, just friggin' snipe all my solos right off, or my unit leaders and solos off right off the top. So we had a really weird matchup. I had max range 22-inch guns, and you had max range 18-inch guns. And that led us both to make this weird decision, which was I need to win the dice roll.
To go second.
Yep.
Or so that A, I can choose where I'm going to be, and B, I can be 10 inches up. So that they have to run, either move into my alpha or deny me, which means that they're now sitting back. And if they're sitting back, then I get to win on scenario. And that was kind of how we went at it. You won the dice roll. So you moved in exactly as I sort of thought you would be. You moved into the better strategic position. And then all I could do at that point was deny you the alpha shot. In other words, be that 20 inches back, so that you had to move within the 20 inches so that I could shoot you or leave the scenario open to me. And it was a weird sort of situation to be in. And your dice skewed a little bit. You missed a bunch of critical rolls. And I didn't do great on my rolls, but on the other hand, I was able to just sort of get rid of a lot of stuff. My first round was terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Galleon did no work. Galleon
really didn't do any work in our entire battle, but
didn't do
I
anything.
think before we go any deeper into that, we should hear from Marc-Andre how he would generally play a list like that.
Sure. I think pre-measuring means shooting lists have that sort of like that dilemma where, you try to set up to take them out and your opponent will go, I will put my models, the next turn will be going for scenario. I'll put them just out of range of you, and so you have to now make the next move. And that is a legit play, but what you sort of have to do is not overreact to an opponent that does that sort of pre-measure, saying, okay, I'm just out of your range, good to go. Like the Haley 1 list has so many guns that you can basically just, whereas your instinct may be to go, okay, let's run all these models, like let's move the blazers up, be really aggressive. It's actually, it's interesting because you can actually put clock pressure on your opponent. If they spend 5 minutes pre-measuring everything, going good, I'm outside of 20 inches of all of your models. You can't shoot me this turn. And you go, cool. They all move up 1 inch. Maybe my storm wall contests the relevant scenario zone, or maybe I start dominating or what have you. And you just move everything very quickly. You flip it back to your opponent. And now they have to do all of that same work again, for another turn. And if you've contested scenario appropriately, you may either force your opponent to use a defensive feat, or you may switch. You may force them to be overly aggressive now. And Haley 1 has a feat, a spell, Temporal Barrier, that as long as you keep line of sight to her blocked with like Tempest Blazers and your Storm Wall, like they can work together to sort of make a bubble for her. You can deny your opponent the alpha in a lot of cases. Having access also to Arcane Vortex allows you to stop things like Hunter's Mark, of course, since Linus is so popular now. It allows you to stop some of those spells aimed at say your Colossal that would perhaps give your opponent like the extra threat range they need to get in on you. So really, you kind of have to bunker up and slowly inch forward until your opponent has no other choices left but to basically walk into your threat range.
I think bunker up is the operative word here. Because I think one of the problems that you had was you spread you basically shotgunned your solos out, which meant that the Commodore and a couple of the AoE, like I have a lot of AoE in that list, and the Commodore cannon can, like, with everything added to it, if you got rock bottom and everything, it can hit anything. It can reach out and touch anything at 20 inches. If you've got Gunner close enough, it can reach out and touch anything at 22. So it's easy for me to go priority target, priority target, priority target. Which one is the biggest priority? Let's just let Commodore snipe it. And if I can't snipe it, then I might be able to put or do a what do you call that? A
Thunderbolt?
Basically Thunderbolt. In so that it ends up doing a POW 13 to that solo by proxy type of thing. So there's a lot of things that I think in both games that you played that I saw, shotgunning those solos, you didn't really deliver those solos so that they were untouchable, I guess. Maybe. So I'm not going to go into grand detail, but it came down. We didn't play on clock. We gave you time to sort of think about it. it was a 3-hour game, and it came down to scenario and you having to take 2 points and not being able to clear it. Gobber Tinker totally held the zone for me. He was amazing.
Def 18 is a thing.
It's friggin' ridiculous. Def 18 with 5 boxes on top of all of that. It's pretty friggin' ridiculous. So Jason, you just finished. You only got to round 2, but you kind of felt. You guys kind of had already decided that the game was over.
Yeah.
Sort of. Is that the same thing that he had done? He kind of shotgun those solos.
Yep.
Well, I think if you listen to what Marc-Andre said about not playing overly aggressively, not throwing the Tempest Blazers right down your throat.
Yeah.
What did I do turn 1?
Threw those Tempest Blazers right into my swordsman.
Yep.
And I got to live the dream with your Tempest Blazers, which is Hawk, the Rock Bottom throws the bonus to hit, Hawk throws the additional die to damage, and I got a charge with Mar with basic overrun basically. So I got to take it 2. If you had tighter grouped them, I might have got like 6 of them. But I mean, when you can live the dream, like you were so far forward.
Yeah, I think the problem is I've been playing that Striker 2 list over and over again.
Yeah, you get your Storm Lances.
And I'm used to Armor 20 Storm Lances down the guy's throat, and then I've got the second unit to follow those up.
That's not how you run the gun mages.
And I'm using horses incorrectly. Those horses incorrectly, I think.
All right, so let's go over to Marc-Andre. Marc-Andre, how your advice for helping George beat us better?
I mean, I think if the list pair is sort of what it fits into. So I think one thing that I like to do when I'm trying to test out a list is kind of discuss with my opponent beforehand and go like, is this a list I would ever drop into what you usually play? Assuming a list pair. So that's like one thing, because if you, for example, playing that list into like Vyros 2 would be like a waste of time, because you would never play Haley 1 into Vyros 2 because he has Deceleration, he has Discordia, he basically shuts down guns super hard. So like having that conversation ahead of time helps make sure that the matchup will be useful. And I mean that in the sense of like from like a competitive angle. So I mean that's one thing to keep in mind. And it does sound like the games he played could have very reasonably happened in like a steamroller setting, so I don't see an issue with that. Definitely keeping the Blazers safe is big. It might not be a bad idea to make sure Arcane Shield, goes on them early in the game. Typically there aren't too many threats to Stormwall early in the game, especially if I'm seeing blast damage across the board. Like, for example, like the Commodore cannon is rocking. I would definitely think about putting Arcane Shield on them early. Also, and your solos are definitely like when I meant brick up, it was really with in case you're really afraid of someone drawing line of sight to Haley and killing her trivially, which can happen. The solos should be as spread out as possible so that while still being able to keep them in control range for your feet. You definitely want to spread them out to avoid things like blast damage, taking them out. And you need to make sure your Stormwall is like absolutely safe from melee threats, because that's what's going to take it out. Temporal Barrier helps you stop that, and so does Arcane Vortex. But that's the biggest thing, I think, is making sure your Stormwall is as safe as can be.
Now, with a list like this where there is no jam unit, there's nothing to stop someone getting a line on something like the Stormwall for a melee attack. How do you stop someone from taking out a Stormwall?
Well, I mean, Temporal Barrier is obviously one of them. Taking out the biggest threats to the Stormwall is another. I mean, you look at a circle list, you go, okay, there's a Stalker, there's Getorix, I have to shoot him off the board. And you can very easily do that. Assuming you can get line of sight to him through Wormwood's Forest or what have you. So there's that sort of play there. Again, she can protect the Stormwall from nasty spells that might debuff his armor, like Curse of Shadows or like Parasite, things like that. And so there are a lot of armies that sort of rely on that to deal their damage. But you also can jam with your Tempest Blazers. It's not as good as it was because they lost one defense. But like being able to range out, like walk up 9 under feet, just let a bunch of shots rip into the enemy lines, and then reposition, like move their 5 inches forward again, under Arcane Shields, they become like 14, 16, I want to say. Like, a lot of infantry will have trouble answering that, especially if by moving up 9 and then another 5, you're denying them charge. Like that, denying them that third die may mean some attacks bounce off of them. Covering fires, again, can help your storm wall, protect your storm wall from like charging infantry. Like you have so many guns that do a decent amount of damage. Really, the only thing that's going to get you is like hard range denial, like a forest wall or deceleration, or I guess knowing when to sacrifice your Tempest Blazers to buy you that turn is
really important.
is part of it. Yeah, because the Tempest Blazers will do that, especially if you spread them out as they go in with like the reposition. You can sort of stagger them so that your opponent will need to get like multiple heavies to take them out, at which point Stormwall is not going to die that turn.
Yeah. So one last thing with a list like this, how do you know when to feat? Should we be feating to remove infantry? Is it only feat when you have the assassination run? What as a general rule are you looking for with a caster like this that has a feat that's basically do extra X amount of damage?
I would look at a few things. For example, if your opponent gives you an option or an opportunity to throw, for a really juicy throw with the Stormwall, to just knock down their caster, I mean, obviously that would be a feat turn for me. Like if you go, oh look, I throw one Tempest Blazer, it knocks down their caster, and of course we all know how broken throws are now, where you basically don't have to roll to hit the model you're throwing at. That would be, of course, a turn where I would do that. Like if it's a small base model, you might be able to, like, you proxy it out and you see, oh, I can like run this, this like gun mage. If I throw him, they'll hit their caster, then the rest I can feat, and all the rest of my guns will take them out. So I guess the high defense caster that could be knocked down. That would be how I would go. Conversely, if I'm seeing a lot of heavies, obviously that would be once everything is more or less in shooting range, I would go for it. And again, if it's an infantry heavy list, I mean, as soon as those Tempest Blazers can get close enough to unleash their, Electroleap guns, that's when I would feat.
Excellent.
It depends how many threats to Stormwall, I guess there are. Like if there's three or more melee threats to Stormwall, I would feat to engage those. If it's less than that, I would probably feat to take out any infantry that might be a problem later.
I mean, it was interesting in our game. I didn't take Stormwall out of the equation, but having Galleon meant that I had an equal answer to Stormwall, if that made sense. So it was sort of like, if you get into range of Galleon, he's going to do a bunch of shit to you. And if I get, and I had armor 22 on Galleon the whole game, and you had armor 22 on Stormwall the whole game. So I think it kind of balanced it. I want to kind of, I wish we could talk about this all night, because dojoing is so much goddamn fun. But the one thing I want to leave you guys to talk about is, you had kind of like what I would put in this list now to fix this problem, which may be an ADR thing. Say Haley 1 shows up on ADR, then I have some things
like she is right now.
Oh yeah, she's right now. What you said, you might have some things you wanted to swap in. I want you to kind of talk to Marc-Andre on that point and see kind of where that goes and why it's good or why it's a bad idea.
Well, a lot of the things that I was playing with were sort of direct reactions to something that was happening at the time. I felt that I wasn't getting the damage output in melee occasionally that I wanted to. So I was thinking about throwing in a Ragman. And the other thing was dropping Strange Ways and putting in a unit of gun mages for pushing things around with Thunderbolt. And it added another set of guns because though you've got a spray with Strange Ways, mostly he's there for an extra focus because you've already got a unit of repair, and his like entire job seems to be give one focus to Stormwall.
That's not actually why he's there, though. Not really. I mean, that's not a bad thing to do with him, but really he's there to give magic weapons to Stormwall.
Okay.
So that when you play against like a Windwall caster, like Vlad 1 or Lilith 3, for example, or against Menoth in general, like you say, oh yeah, you passaged, that's great, I don't care. That's what he's really there for, I think.
Got
He
it.
also gives you a repair that can be, situationally very good.
Oh yeah, in my game against Jason, he put some early damage on Stormwall, and it was all gone the next turn. But what do you think about somebody like the gun mages in that list?
I mean, I'm pretty down on gun mages in general. I don't think, though, using them for like the double thunderbolt on feat turn, definitely not a bad idea. Like I can definitely see the scenario game that you can play with that.
But do you think I'm giving up too much to get that scenario game?
I think, again, and we play, like, I think if you're thinking like meta as a whole, you're gonna have an issue where you run into Lilith 3 and you say, oh shit, now I can no longer really reliably threaten her as a whole. Now I don't know if this is, honestly, I don't know if that list pair would be great for Lilith 3 anyway, like if it would be a good time for the Cygnar player. But yeah, losing access to magical weapons, like I kind of feel like I have trouble not putting Arlen in every single one of my lists.
Yeah, well,
being able to hand out just that extra focus and make your caster have all the options, kind of awesome.
Extra focus, get rid of disruption, magic weapon, repair. Like
he's just really
he's a
all
beast.
good.
Yeah. He's a giant tool.
All right, guys, we let you we let you do that. We let you dojo a list to kick our asses on air,
awesome.
and then we
should each get one of these episodes.
Well, here's the thing.
I think it's not wrong.
Hold on. As Jason pointed out,
yeah,
by us beating G's list, we by proxy beat Mark Entree at a game.
Oh,
that makes me feel pretty good.
I feel awesome about myself, and I did it with my janky friggin' Commodore Cannon list, and you did it with your 2 Helmuth lists. I mean, that we threw together ourselves.
Yeah.
So
a list that could beat Mark Andre.
So what this really comes down to is
Hold on, guys.
Hold on.
We're holding.
We're waiting.
I think he has a problem with your initial premise.
Oh.
Is that not accurate?
No, I'm congratulating you guys.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you, Mark Andre.
Well, and the funny part about this is that G keeps blaming the dice. Have you noticed that?
He's been cursing his dice.
I got screwed by the dice again. It has nothing to do with this list is solid. All right, let's leave all that behind because we just want to give.
He's stewing now.
I can't pat
He's going to reach out and smack us.
I can't pat you on the back, and you can't pat me on the back. No, you can't do that because we literally have to give ourselves self pats. That's how. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
feels nice.
Good for you, Will. You're so great. All right, gentlemen. Yeah, we got to leave all that behind because it is time for
the lightning round.
The lightning round is 10 of the most difficult questions in all of War Machine. Well, 9, and then one really ridiculous.
Do we have
one.
a Minty this week?
We do, of course we do.
Oh my god!
The Minty
comes through every week.
Minty comes through every week, and the funny part is I'm getting later and later with asking him. Like I'm getting to the point now where I'm like, literally, it's like
he probably has one just waiting
5
anyway.
minutes. Yeah, well, he and I had this long conversation about it once. He's like, "Yeah, I'm here. I just want to make weird questions." So here it goes. We actually have a correction from last week.
Oh.
Correction from last week. The first question is, there was a mistake. What 2 characters have coins on their cards? It's 2, not 1. I screwed up.
Well, we know Rock Bottom.
Okay, you got
Damiano.
It's Rock Bottom and Damiano. See, you had to buzz in. Do you guys remember the rules of this game? You got to buzz in. That is a whole buzzing in.
Was that the correction, or was that a question?
That was a correction. Damiano actually has
not
coins as well.
Well,
I'm not buzzing
No,
in.
that was the
correction.
no, it was the question.
What?
And Mark Andre got it right.
Was that question 1?
Yeah, it was question 1.
Oh.
You think that wasn't a question?
I thought it was a
I
correction.
thought it was a correction.
No. All right. This has to do with your list and see how well you know it, G. Are you ready for this? Question number 2. An Arcane Tempest Rifleman has a reposition of... I'm gonna have to give that
3 inches.
It is Maelstrom 3 inches. I had to give that one. He was fast. He was on the he was on the gun on that one. Question number 3: the Arcane Wonder objective has a null zone where an enemy model suffers what within 4 inches? Mark Andre.
-2 range, 2 spells when targeting a model within 4 of the objective.
Exactly. Question. So Mark Andre's kicking your asses. I just want to
What?
Put that up. Well, you got 1
Oh,
point.
it's true, yeah.
You got a point.
I'm doing all right.
All right, question number 4. What is the rate of fire on Stormwall's chain cannon?
Ooh, that was...
I'm going to have to give that one a G.
D3.
It is D3. Very good. Can disruption be shaken? Marc-Andre.
No, because you cannot be allocated focus.
Exactly.
Good job. Good job.
Number 6.
It also just can't be shaken.
It just can't be shaken. Question number 6. A wild war beast must do what during its activation? Marc-Andre.
Make a normal advance.
It
Or full
must
advance?
it must run if
Oh,
it
really?
can.
Oh, that's
Yes.
new.
It can make an advance. This was because I read this was
What is
so
this? A wild war beast.
a wild war beast.
What the fuck is a wild war beast?
It's one that's just been left on its own with no controller.
Gotcha.
So here's the funny thing. You guys may or may not know this, that I reread the rule book
A lot.
on a weekly basis to remind myself how to play this freaking game. And that was one of those ones like, what the F? Nobody
Yeah.
knows that.
What's a wild war beast? What the
So yeah, a wild war beast must run if it can. If it can't run, it must walk.
So it's like a unit with somebody out of the
It's
command
basically
zone.
yeah. It's basically and I'm waiting for everybody to come after me and be like, no, that's totally wrong. You totally read that wrong.
Come at him, bros.
Number 7. What are the 3 life spirals? Maelstrom.
Body, spirit, and mind.
Body, spirit, and mind is correct. You're
no
doing well.
particular
You're
order.
doing well tonight.
I almost didn't. I
Yeah,
almost
you had
missed that
beer
because
in-
I have beer in my
beer
mouth.
in your mouth. You shouldn't drink just before the question.
Shit, yeah.
All right, question number 8. What is the animus on an afflictor?
I don't
Ooh.
use afflictors. Nobody uses afflictors.
That's why I put this question in there. We're at the
God
question number
damn it.
8. It's getting harder.
I've got a perfectly horrible answer, and I don't want to say it.
You're going to come up with one of
No,
your
no, I can't
answering
say it.
literally.
I've been specifically banned from referring to this
Oh.
as a PG, so I can't.
What,
I can't.
you can't do it because
Something about it being unplayable trash.
No. I'm a PG. I'm not a member of Crippled System.
Oh, okay.
You know, in Mark II, it gave you sack pawn to Solus models.
I just need the name. If you guys
Yeah,
can
I
come-
don't know.
All right.
Just a second. Let me open
It
War
is.
Room here.
It's a tractor. It's a tractor.
Tractor.
Hey,
called
baby.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
All right. Question
That's what I
number.
used on my wife.
Yeah, it's literally a dude in the bar with half a beer going, "Hey, baby,
Yep.
it's the end of the night, and I'm going to buy you an Uber to my place." Question number 9. What is the name of Tanith's ranged weapon? Marc-Andre.
Jaws of the Earth.
Very good. It is
Jesus
Jaws
Christ.
of the Earth. That is friggin' amazeballs. All right, here we go. Minty Fresh question of the week.
Here we go.
And for those who don't know, Minty is a local PG
Yep.
and the keeper of the lore.
Yes.
We haven't mentioned this in a while, so it's kind
It's
of
been a
important. And he comes up with the most hardest questions ever. So
He does.
Here it comes. Who did Magnus hire to supervise his army in order to help facilitate his entrance into Corvus?
Could you read that again, please?
Who did Magnus hire to supervise his army in order to help facilitate his entrance into Corvus?
Put down your phone, G.
And stop looking at my phone.
I'm sending a message to Minty, but I'm going to say Kane.
Kane.
Was it?
I'm going to say Bethane.
Bethane? I'll let you
I'm
have a
going to say
guess.
it wasn't Bethane.
Let you have a guess there, Marc-Andre.
I'm gonna say I don't know, Bart.
No, it was actually Drake McBain, ladies and gentlemen. Drake McBain.
Damn it, McBain.
It used to be really legit. It used to
We
be
had
super-
some Bartolos on the
Yeah, there was a
chat
lot of
too.
Barts because Bart's super legit. I've proven it by coming in 5th and with
I don't
Bart.
think that has anything to do with the question.
No, that's why. Because everybody's like, "Oh, I heard Bart's super legit."
Mike, the answer was never potato.
All right, guys.
Taters?
One thing I want to do, because we always forget this every week, let's give a shout out to Trollblood Scrum. They're coming up
Yep.
after us on the Moose Machine Network. If you're watching the Moose Machine Network, please tune
If you're
in.
not, please tune in
Please
to the
tune
Moose
in.
Machine Network.
Moose
Yeah.
Machine Network is where we put, so basically all the best podcasts, as far as I'm concerned, are all there. We'd like to get a couple
Yeah.
more of the best ones,
true.
but they're like, no, we have our own network. And someday they'll be like, okay, we'd like to be on yours because other
And we'll be
people
like,
watch
ha,
it. We'll be like, okay.
That would be awesome. Thank you very much.
Trollblood Scrum is coming up. The other cool thing that the Trollblood Scrum guys do, which was mentioned in the chat tonight, that we don't talk about it nearly enough, is that the guys from Trollblood Scrum have been putting together probably the greatest amalgamation of data of
Yeah.
all time. Tell us about that, G.
Of game knowledge. Yeah, basically, they're getting as many people as possible to report games to War Machine and Horde battlereporter.com. So WMHbattlereporter.com. And basically, they generate these amazing graphs that show win rates of all the different factions, how they're doing, and how they're doing against each other. Now, it is a lot of really great data. And I think everybody should check it out. It's obviously, because it is all self-reported, it is not perfectly legit.
But here's how it could be more legit.
Yeah.
More people.
If we all go and report our games.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
the bigger
check it
the
out.
sample size we get, the better off it is. So
It's going to be the way that we all know who the best faction is next year.
yeah.
Except for all
And that'll be the
the
faction
cheating Legion players who just put that they win all the time.
Yeah, well, I do win all the time. Except when I don't, which is most of the time.
That's the first one I want to give a shout out to. Secondly, Marc-Andre, there's some stuff going on with the WTC Canadian teams doing some fundraiser stuff. Do you want to talk to that a little bit and tell people how they can be part of all of that?
Yeah, I mean, right now we have. Let's see here. I haven't actually been keeping up to date too much on it.
You're just
because
too
I'm not
damn busy.
I'm not going after all this year, so that I haven't quite kept up with it.
I'll give you a second to figure that out while we talk to. I want to just talk while he's looking that up. I want to talk about the Wizard's Tower a little bit. These are the guys that keep our lights on. These are the guys that make sure that we can keep doing our podcast week to week.
They pay my electric bill.
They totally pay your electric and your other bills.
At least that's what I hope.
All your bills someday. Well, yeah, Dave from the Wizard's Tower literally just comes over and is like,
We still have power. So.
How much money do you need this week, Maelstrom? Yeah. Oh God.
Yep.
If only.
That's not how it works at all. Actually, they give us they don't really give us a lot of money, but they have been supporting us since we started.
Absolutely.
So it's not about the money; it's about the fact that they do a one stock in their store, that they're online, that they're one of the best places to get our models in Canada.
They've just done their first battle foam order, which they're going to continue to do. So
Which is
they're
amazing.
Going to be a place in Ottawa here where you'll be able to
And online, all over
actually
Canada.
get battle foam, which is amazingly hard if you're not in downtown Toronto or the U.S.
That is
Absolutely,
fantastic.
and that's the big thing is like you just have to remember that if you're in Canada and you don't want to pay all that U.S. shipping, which we all have to do, battle foam is super expensive, takes a lot of time. Dave is learning that this week.
Yeah.
I got a great message from Dave. He's like, how does this take so much goddamn time? But they've done the effort. They've gone to the effort of getting it here for us, so you don't have to wait for it if you need that little bit.
a lot like Bill Cosby.
I know, he totally sounds like Bill Cosby.
I hope he wears the sweaters.
Everybody sounds like Bill Cosby. He kind of looks like a white Bill Cosby. Except without,
don't do that.
Let's not go
Don't
there.
go there.
Bill Cosby used to be a good person to do impression. Now it just so horrible.
Now it's kind of sad.
Apologies
Let's-
to Dave.
Put that crap behind us.
We should do a show. One of our regular viewers, Mike Bilac, also just had a baby this week.
Oh yeah, congratulations, Mike.
Congratulations
And the
to
last
Mike.
thing
his
I
future
want to give
War
a
Machine
big
player.
shout out. Right, babies are important, but you know what's more important than your Rugrats? You people that have babies is the Moose Machine feed token.
I know I'd sell my baby for one.
It dropped
That's
this
pretty
week.
sweet.
It dropped this week. We finally got them. It took
Yeah.
us this particular feed token. I want to talk
That one there.
about.
Here.
It's you can go hold it
I'll
up
go
to the
hold it
camera.
up to the camera.
This thing has been 8 years in development. It was in development before War Machine came to Ottawa.
Yep.
Dave Tellier, Dave the old PG from Ottawa. He talked once in a dream that he wished that there was a feat token that was as awesome as this feat token. We started development back in 1992, and it took us that long to design the perfect feat token. It's not only a bottle cap opener.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Tell
not
us
only
more.
it's a feat token that's not that sometimes you're like, hey, I want a feat, but I need a beer. Crap, I wish I had a bottle opener. Well, guess what? It's a bottle opener, ladies and gentlemen.
It took 3 years of testing
Testing
to get enough design space that we could get
We
a
needed
token of this quality.
We
It took
needed
3 hashtags.
Well, and it takes 3 goes at a bottle to open a beer. Sometimes, if you're
I did
not
it
good-
on one.
You did it on one.
It's practice. It's just like War Machine.
It's too good
You need
for
to
me.
practice.
It's too big. It's just I need.
And it's heavy. I mean, you throw this at your opponent, and it's going to hurt.
Yeah. If you're mad at your opponent, it is a weapon.
Yeah.
It is a 2-inch. You can use it to measure out 2-inch reach. I don't know if you know that.
Yep.
It is a completely inaccurate large base proxy.
As most large base proxies are.
Yeah. So I mean, legit large base proxy. And if you want one, where do you go, G? Because you could also get really cool T-shirts too.
There are all kinds of awesome T-shirts and coasters.
And socks.
And ladies' leggings. Well, I guess guys could wear them too, but
I know they're quite comfortable.
I would like 0 pictures of that, please.
I want a picture of a lady in the crotch rocket.
Yes.
That has to happen.
We need that to happen. But you can go to store.moosemachinenetwork.com. And you can pick it all up there. You can get the OGWC T-shirts. You can get the Moose Machine T-shirts. You can get the one of my favorite brand new T-shirts we're offering now, the My Other Army is Fully Painted T-shirt.
Oh, that's a sweet T-shirt.
To let TOs know that even though the one on the table isn't, My Other Army is fully painted. As well as as you mentioned before, the bottle openers, the socks, all kinds of great stuff are there.
They're not just bottle openers, G. They're
multi-tools.
Multi-purpose feet marking tools. I mean, really? You could take this camping. It will start a fire for you.
Yeah.
It'll put up your tent.
So I've had an idea. Are we going to offer a $2 discount for anybody who can give us a translation of the back of the coin?
The problem is that in the day of the internet, everybody will do that within 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And
No
I
discount,
think,
but if you
they have to
figure it out.
they have to personally call you and complain.
Ooh.
Yeah.
If they call you personally and complain, you can give them the code for the $2 reduction.
We'll put up
price.
George's number later.
We're going to put up George's personal home phone number later on the cast.
Yeah, it'll be off by 1 digit, and you won't know which digit it is.
Maybe they just email
It'll only
us.
take me 9 tries to get it.
If you message us at the Moose Machine Facebook page, Mark Andres has gone to sleep. He's eating a sandwich.
How about if they send an email to moosemachinenetwork@gmail.com?
There you go. And you tell us what it is,
tell
and
us what it says on the back.
legitimately complain about how that isn't what happened. See, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so pushing all that stuff aside, let's move. We're not talking about the Latin, by the way.
The Latin is on the front. We're talking about what it says on the back.
Okay,
yeah,
so
somebody already guessed it.
Now you
not
just
a
let
guess.
everybody on the internet know. All right,
And
so
it's not right.
guys. Let's push this all aside. It's let's go back to Marc Andre. What is
Are you still there, Mark?
By the way,
Yes, I am.
what is
Absolutely.
what is the Canadian WTC doing to raise a little bit of money this year?
Car wash.
Yeah, so
Shirtless car wash.
you have to drive your car
White
to us,
T-shirts.
though. And we're a bit spread out. I mean, we this year are selling some T-shirts like we have in the past with the WTC Canada logo on it. We also have some base huggers, which are basically small sort of portions of a circle that fit onto a base that you can write effects on, so it helps sort of track where those effects are. We also have the precision measuring kits like we have sold in the past, just with new sort of artwork on them, which gives you your 5-inch template as well as your 6-inch template. We have some proxy bases and some blast widgets, along with some backgammon precision dice as well. Now, all of this can be found on our Indiegogo page. Basically, if you type in Canada WTC 2016 Indiegogo into Google, it'll come up. It's also possible to go on the Canadian War Mahords WTC page, where again there's a link and a party file article as well, so you can find it from their website, and it sort of links to all the different things that are for sale along with the pricing, and basically any profit from those items goes to help send our teams to Amsterdam this year to compete in the World Team Championship, which in the past, I mean, we had a lot of success with fundraising. We had tons of support from the community. It was really awesome to go there and sort of participate in this event. And the streaming guys will be there again. This is sort of apart from our fundraising, but they hit their mark. They hit their target, I think, just a few days ago. So they'll be streaming all these games, and hopefully Canada will show up again in the on the live stream. It was really cool. We were there last year. It's too bad we had to play against possibly the scariest team there.
Yeah.
But
Team
it was
Live.
still a lot of fun.
Yeah, I want to make a quick call out to those widgets. I just got my set, and I'm loving the extra 1-inch move widget at the base of
my
the
God, that 1-inch
6x4.
It's freaking legit, dude.
Yeah, it was something I was not expecting and was very happy to see.
Yeah, the little notch. That's a new thing for sure. We didn't have that in the past years, and there's definitely some use to it. I like it.
Okay, guys. Unfortunately, we're past the death clock by 17 minutes. I was going to give us like an extra 2.
Well, it's
and then
Mark
we got,
3.
We got
so-
super Oh, Mark 3. It's
Yeah,
we needed to give ourselves some hashtag
no.
design space.
Yeah.
We needed to test it for 3 years.
Hashtag 75 minutes,
Yeah.
60 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for the death clock this evening. The only other
Is
thing,
it?
we don't really have any real big events coming up in the local Ottawa meta, but we do have a few small events. I'm going to let you talk to that, and then I'm going to hit the damn button. But you got to go quick. You got 20 seconds. Go.
In September, we have an OTC set up where you can win a spot into the Wizards Tower sponsored OTC. And in October, we're doing Two-Headed Pharaoh. It's a two-headed game where you and a friend play 75 points together against another pair of people. It should be a lot of fun.
The lightning round. Dice down. Moose Machine and This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes is a proud part of the Muse on Minis network. Podcasts go online every Thursday morning. You can watch the show live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern on Twitch and keep in touch with us on our Facebook page. Just Google Moose Machine. If you can't find us, you're doing the internet wrong.
We're going to give 1 second. The closing thing went over, blah, 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 blah. You can watch us next week. Marc-Andre, you have your own podcast now. Pimp that shit.
Yeah, so myself, Trevor Atridge, and Tim Bear, we've decided to start an all Cygnar podcast called
Those-
The Storm Chamber.
You fuckers know nothing.
So where did you get that idea?
Yeah, ooh, podcast. Sorry. Now you can pimp it.
Dickheads.
Don't get jealous.
It's against my nature.
Maybe
It's
if you're really good, we can be on it.
But we're not as cool as you guys. We're not live. We're only bi-weekly. But our focus is entirely on Cygnar. There is a lot to talk about. Obviously, we're going to be doing sort of caster reviews, but also like we're looking at sort of saying, okay, this month we're all going to play 3-4 games with this caster, and we're going to report back, give people an impression of our games. Our goal is really to just get as in-depth as possible with how Cygnar is played. And so far we've got 3 episodes up. Next one should hit in 2 weeks, where we'll be doing a TempleCon recap. Both Trevi and myself are going this weekend. I'm leaving tomorrow at like 5 in the morning to go. So we're hoping to sort of get that content going. And yeah, it's on the Muse network,
Yep.
and also being linked through Way of the Swan, which is Trevi's sort of Cygnar page that he's been doing for quite a while.
Yeah, Trevi's super legit. We've had him on the cast. He's friggin' amazing.
Have we?
Love that guy. Yeah. Like really early cast. You were here for that.
Oh, okay.
I know you
that
were
was a
here
long
for
time
it.
ago.
Oh, it was a very
Whoa,
long.
whoa,
We
what
should get him
episode is
back
this?
on the cast because now that he's
scary.
now that he's got his own podcast, we should just anyway. All
What
right,
episode is this? Is this 49?
45.
45.
We got 5 to go till 50. Someday we'll be
Okay.
at 250, like the Muse on Minis cast.
Well, if we go to taking a 1-hour podcast and splitting it up into 15-minute
Like, they
sections.
support us.
Hey,
Don't just be quiet.
hey.
All right, guys.
Hey.
We're just gonna let it roll out for a little bit. We need to give it about 20 seconds for the fade, but we'll hold on to that little bit of awesome information.
Yep.
Marc-Andre, it was really great to have you back on the
It
cast.
was.
I'm glad that you're not playing Guild Ball exclusively anymore.
For sure.
We're glad to have you back. And I want to say that Who's the Boss tournament, I had so much goddamn fun until Magic 2 did not get to live the dream of the drudges.
I had fun just walking around and looking at all the different pairings. Like, oh my god, that caster with that army, what the
Hey,
hell?
Fraser.
All I got to say is flying drudge monkeys was the
That
greatest
scares
moment
the
of my
hell
life.
out of me.
Yeah. Pretty
Like I'm
sweet.
having nightmares about that shit.
Flying drudges.
When I did it, I cast the spell and I'm like,
Jesus Christ. Oh man.
All right.
Anyways,
All right, Troll Blood Scrum is only in 40 minutes now
All right.
because we're way the fuck over the line.
good night, gentlemen.
Night,
Good night
everybody.
to everybody.
good night.